Hello and welcome to the quick timeout with Sean Carroll. We have a trade to announce. Josh Giddey has been traded to the Chicago Bulls for Alex Caruso in a very early trade that gives us a little bit of stuff to talk about before the NBA draft. And just kind of an insane trade for various reasons. This is a straight swap. You might know that the Oklahoma City Thunder have every single pick under the sun, and not a single one of them has been disrupted. OKC gets to keep every single one of their picks while moving a weak link on their playoff team and on just their regular season team. I'm just going to run through what this means for the league, and then what this means for the Chicago Bulls, and then the Oklahoma City Thunder, and everything moving forward. So first of all, Alex Caruso has been kind of on the trade market, kind of not on the trade market for the past couple of years. This most recent deadline was probably where he was most available, and apparently teams were calling and teams were very interested in trading for Alex Caruso. And there was a report for Jake Fisher that came out in the past week that said that there were multiple offers at the deadline that teams were offering at least 2 first-round picks for Alex Caruso. Now that the wording there specifically didn't mention that they were unprotected, so it could have been 2 protected first-round picks, but there was definitely lots of buzz and lots of, there was interest in trading for Alex Caruso. I know from listening to a bunch of Warriors pods that the Warriors did offer Moses Moody and an unknown first, and it was sort of like reading in between the lines in the Jake Fisher deal. The Memphis Grizzlies offered 2 first-round picks, and I wonder if they were including their 2024 pick, which ended up becoming 9th this year. So that's the sort of range and the sort of value that we were seeing for Alex Caruso. But no, the Bulls have traded for Josh Giddey. Let's start off on the interesting side. Why would you trade for Josh Giddey? He is going to be the Bulls' starting point guard from day one, and he shouldn't impact the Bulls' best hope, which is Coby White, who can play. He is a combo guard, so he can play off the ball and on the ball. He'll probably start at the 2 next to Giddey on opening night next year, and this is obviously before the draft and before free agency, so we don't really know what's going to happen. But Coby White won't be impacted by Josh Giddey, and Josh Giddey can come in, and he's going to be the guy, essentially replacing the Lonzo Ball role, which is, Lonzo Ball should be playing basketball this year according to him because he had a ligament transplant, but we'll believe it when we see it. So Giddey's going to be their main half-court operator, and he's also going to add one thing that Giddey does do for OKC, and maybe this is one small little knock for OKC, is that Giddey really powers their transition game. So it's going to be interesting to see what the Bulls can do, because they actually, I'll start off with the positive. They actually have a bit of like a defensive frenzy of guards. They've got Coby White, they've now got Josh Giddey, they've got Javon Carter, and Ayo Dosunmu, who, Giddey's going to be getting a steal, getting a rebound, and looking right up the court for Ayo Dosunmu. But I don't think that's the basis of a solid offense. That's not just going to power your offense or put you into the top 15 in the league. So Giddey's at the moment a below average point guard who's got very good counting stats, very good as in, early career Ben Simmons. And their projected starting lineup, again, before the draft and before free agency, would be Giddey, White, Zach LaVine, who's currently got one knee and we don't even know if he's ready for opening night, DeMar DeRozan, if he's retained, which is, and Nikola Vucevic. They're really trying to kill Bulls fans with that starting lineup. But in that starting lineup, you've got LaVine, who is going to definitely be a little bit below his powers. You've got DeMar DeRozan, who, he is what he is. He's not going to shoot threes. He's not going to spread the floor. And you've got Vucevic, who, he can spread the floor to the mid-range, and he probably can take a few steps back and take a few more threes, but he just simply hasn't. And if he hasn't changed now, he's definitely not going to now. Add Giddey into the mix, a guy who can't shoot. When he does shoot, it's he's got the Kyle Anderson in him, where he's really winding up and he's taking his time. So the only player, maybe 2 players, who are spreading the floor in that lineup is Coby White and Zach LaVine. So then if you're DeMar DeRozan and you're looking at the Bulls, and they can probably offer you more money in free agency, and maybe you can work out a sign and trade to end up on the Lakers or something. But if you're DeMar DeRozan and you're focused on getting the most amount of money, you're really going to have to take a hard look in the mirror and say, do I want to stay here where he would operate best as a guy working either as sort of like the roller in a pick and roll, or a guy who there's 4 people spacing the floor for him and he can just operate and just bully his matchup because he can take anyone one-on-one. Is this really the best situation where there's now going to be 3 defenders with their heads simply not looking at their own man, all focused on you as you bully some poor defender, and then 3 dudes just swing past and maybe steal the ball or at least contest your shot more? Not great. And defensively, that was just all on the offensive side. But defensively, Giddey couldn't play in the playoffs, and Mark Daignault, throughout each of the 2 series that he played this year, he tried to find room for Giddey, but every single time, every game that passed in the playoffs, Giddey's minutes just got lower and lower and lower, and it's just much easier to play a Casamorlis who can just catch and shoot threes, play defense as good, if not better than Giddey, which I would say it is better than Giddey. Or Lou Dort, where it's like, okay, maybe his 3 is similar to Giddey, it is better, but at least he can play a lot better defense. So then Giddey's shortcomings on the defensive end, they're not going to be papered over by like Jay Will, Lou Dort, the Casamorlis, or just Chet Holmgren at the paint. They're now going to be papered over by like Levine on one knee, Kobe White, who's a diminutive combo guard who can't really defend, and Vucevic at the paint. It's pretty grim. And then on top of that, the Bulls get this prospect who's he's going to turn 22 in October. They get this prospect and they get a good look at him, and he's still on his rookie contract. But next offseason, he'll be entering the final year of his deal, and he's going to be extension eligible. And you assume if you're giving up, a key asset that's worth 2 first-round picks or 1.5 first-round picks, you assume if you're giving up that asset, you're going to re-sign the guy. So all of a sudden, they're trading for this guy, and he will bring instant cap relief, but he doesn't even bring long-term cap relief because he's just going to be properly paid. And then as soon as it's like, Giddey's on OKC and he's struggling in the playoffs, but it's like, whatever, he's on his rookie deal and he can progress. Well, as soon as the Bulls get him and then the Bulls re-sign him, it's like, okay, Giddey's struggling in the play-in now, or Giddey's struggling to do this and the spacing looks bad. Oh, we're actually paying him 4 for 80, or like, does he get up to $100 million? Malik Monk a couple of days ago just signed a 4 for 78, which I think was a little bit short for his market. But is Giddey going to make more or less than that? And Giddey's agent is going to go to the Bulls and say, well, you just gave up a serious asset to get me, and we're going to have to do they're going to do whatever they want to. He's going to ask for whatever he wants to re-sign. And then final point on the Giddey for the Bulls situation, he was accused of statutory rape and he wasn't convicted because the alleged victim didn't push for charges. It's not a good sign when you search a player's name and then in Google, and then right after the name you type in stat, and it's not just points, rebounds and assists that come up. It's very, very much worth mentioning that, it's not even like it's a fucking incredible off-court fit because he might be a horrible bloke.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show is your fortnightly dose of the lighter side of basketball, hosted by me, Marco.
And me, Lucas. We take a more laid-back approach, talking about the NBA, the WNBA, FIBA basketball, culture, whatever tickles our fancy or grinds our gears.
The show is filled with great guests, classic gags, and a healthy dose of tangents in honour of the great man himself.
The Jeff Van Gundy Tribute Show, fortnightly on the Deep 2 Podcast Network.
Loves just talking about the league, certain things like that.
Moving on to the Oklahoma City Thunder side of things, fuck the rich get richer. Giddey, as I mentioned, was the weak link on the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that was the Western Conference number 1 seed. And their guard rotation now is going to look like you got Shea, Caruso, Casamorlis, Isaiah Joe, who's a free agent, and Lou Dort. And trading for Caruso now, obviously, as mentioned, before free agency and before the draft, doesn't impact their cap sheet whatsoever. They actually eat into about $1.5 million of their above max cap space. And this is their guard rotation before they go and sign someone, or before they go and trade for someone. So you can bring in a Paul George, or you can bring in a Kevin Durant, or whoever they're targeting, like Larry Markkinen. This does not impact that whatsoever, which is just fucking insane. You've added an an all-defensive guard, right? You've added a guy who's won a championship. You've added a guy who can defend 1 through 3. You've added a guy who just gives you depth and doesn't actually need to play that much. It's not like you're not trading for Alex Caruso and saying, hey, we need you to play 35 minutes a night in the regular season because without you, our defense falls apart. It's like, no, Daigneault's built a very, very solid ecosystem and a very solid defensive core, and Caruso just complements it. And in the playoffs, he might be playing up to 40 minutes a night. I would not be surprised at all. But in the regular season, he's going to be in the 20s. He's going to be splitting the minutes with Cass and Wallace. And it's just, the rich seriously get richer. And OKC's got one of the richest war chest of assets in future picks in the whole entire league, and they didn't give up a single one. There wasn't a single good second round pick that was just thrown in there just to give up a guy that, again, he's going to get properly paid. And speaking of, on the contract front, Alex Caruso, he's owed he's non-guaranteed for $9.9 million for next season, and you assume OKC are going to guarantee that. And this will also be the final year of his deal, and 6 months after the trade goes through, which I don't know if the trade has to go through on July 1st, but assuming it went through a couple of days after it was reported, late October 2024. So today I'm recording this on the 24th. Let's say October 24th, he's going to be extension eligible, and the max that extension can be is a 4-year, $80 million extension, which it's very hard to have these discussions about this dude's going to get paid this much, because it's hard to measure. The cap's going up. We're having this sort of the same discussions we had in 2016 when we were like, oh my God, Evan Turner's making $72 million or $74 million. But that's just the new world. But it also wasn't the new world because that was just a bad contract. So, I'm a little bit shocked. I got a little bit of sticker shock when I saw that he could get up, and people were reporting that he could get up to $80 million in an extension, but maybe that's just what you pay for your third guard now. And since they got his bird rights in this trade, they can sign Alex Caruso to that extension, assuming they make a move for a free agent or trade for someone this year. They can completely do that. They can go over the cap to re-sign Alex Caruso, and then before the 25-26 season, when Chet Holmgren and Jay Will are extension eligible, OKC can again just retain them without having to give up anyone whatsoever. So they've added Alex Caruso. They still have the flexibility to go get an even bigger name. They can retain that big name. They can retain Alex Caruso. They've already got Shea on his fucking almost $500 million Supermax extension, and all their guys in their core they can just retain. And there is absolutely no pressing need to break up this team. So I recorded a pod with Marco 2 weeks ago about the Boston Celtics, saying, hey, are these guys gonna start a dynasty? And it's I don't know, Drew Holiday's 35, and they definitely could. They've done a good job at winning the first title, and now they just have to win more. But if OKC can put it together, and if OKC can find maybe that other piece, or maybe it's just a more complementary piece, and you believe in Shea and the development of Chet and Jay Will, this could be the core of a championship team for the next half decade, or it might not be, but they're definitely going to be in the discussion. So to finish up the pod, if I'm the Thunder, is there anybody else I'd prefer to trade Giddey for? And we were all kind of assuming that Giddey had to be sort of packaged with some picks to sweeten the pot a little bit, and we can only see one trade that's gone through, and in that one trade that went through, he wasn't needed to be packaged to sort of sweeten the pot. So then, are we assuming the Bulls are stupid? Yes, a little bit, but maybe that was just the market. So then, would another team like the Utah Jazz or like the Phoenix Suns, if they're trading up like a Larry Markkinen or Kevin Durant, or if Cat becomes available, would that team receiving the picks for that Larry Markkinen trade, would the Jazz be like, oh no, actually we prefer Giddey? Maybe. I have to assume no, but this is all conjecture. So yeah, I guess. And you still don't need the money to work there because you've got the cap space just to bring in this guy. Caruso makes someone like Cass and Wallace slightly more expendable. You would rather have 4 good starting guards as opposed to 3. But now if that Larry does become available, then you can throw Cass and Wallace in there and not have to worry about who's your first guard coming off the bench because you've got Caruso. But if I'm the Bulls and I had the choice between Giddey and 2 middling picks, or 1.5 middling picks, or a 10 to 15th pick. And it's worth mentioning that the Bulls have the 11th pick this year, and it probably wouldn't be great to be drafting at 9 and 11 in a very bad draft, but hey, picks. Would you rather Moses Moody? I don't know. We're probably never going to know because Steve Kerr's not going to play him. Would you rather, Brandon Clark, and then you don't have to re-sign, Brandon Clark in 9, so you don't have to re-sign Andre Drummond? Maybe you would prefer Giddey, because Giddey will be a starting point guard and he has the potential to go up, and look, his counting stats are going to be quite good, but he might just top out as a nonce Ricky Rubio, which is a good player, but he's not dragging you into the playoffs. He will be your 5th starter. He will be someone who, if you get a better option, you will take him immediately. And if you have the picks, there's a non-0% chance that it grows into a superstar, but I think we can be pretty confident that Josh Giddey isn't going to grow into a superstar. He might not be an all-star player. I think we can all be confident in that. He's definitely not going to be an all-NBA player unless something crazy happens. Whereas if you just drafted someone, you could draft Nikola Jokic at 41, or you can draft, Donovan Mitchell in 14, or Tyler Hero. You can just get guys who have a chance at being better than what Josh Giddey's going to be, and Josh Giddey's going to be paid. Maybe one reason why the Bulls did this is because they owe their 2025 first round pick to the Spurs so next season, if it falls outside the top 10. That was the pick they received in the DeMar DeRozan sign and trade, which DeMar DeRozan's turned out a million times better than what we thought, and then it's protected top 8 in the following 2 years. So if they're trading for present talent as opposed to drafting a guy and hoping he turns into a superstar 5 years from now, they're definitely going to be, not definitely, but oh god, the East is miserable. They're going to be in the play-in discussion next year. Let's say that pick is 11 again, or let's say the pick is up to 14. Then they just hand the pick over to the Spurs, and then all of a sudden they can tank right afterwards. But then, I don't know, you've got Giddey, and Giddey will be good. Giddey, again, nonce Ricky Rubio. It's going to be fine. It's hard to tank when you've just got competent players. It's crazy. Excellent trade by Sam Presti. Fucking hats off. And yeah, that's the pod. So thank you for listening to this little quick timeout with Sean Carroll. Be sure to follow us on socials. Check out the website, thedeep2.com. Our socials are the Deep2 on Instagram, or the Deep2NBA on X, formerly known as Twitter. And yeah, if you like the pod, let me know. If you want to hear something different, if you want to hear another topic in this format. And again, as I've said every single time I do these pods, haven't done many solo podcasts in my life, so if there's any pointers or tips, good, bad, or indifferent, feel free to let me know. Yeah, thanks for listening. Make it a great day.
You want to talk WNBA? Maybe some WNBL? Australian Opals chat? Heck, even dabble in some EuroLeague? Find the W Basketball Show on the Deep2 Podcast Network.
This episode of The Deep 2 is presented by Gelateria Bico, the official gelato of The Deep 2. Gelateria Bico, handmade gelato in the heart of Brunswick.